and thanks for staying with us with the first edition of the program Customs Report in 2023. In this edition, we shall bring you some of the important events performed by the Controller General of Customs in 2022, plus more report. I am Egiseme Etinye. Stay tuned. The Controller General of Nigerian Customs Service has continued to impact more knowledge on men of the service throughout the country. In most of his recent speeches, he talks about revenue generation and stoppage of smuggling in all parts of the country. We now bring you some of the speeches he presented in 2022.
Tax evasion and economic sabotage. Thus, high level of this relationship must be deliberately structured in order to broaden our tax collectivity. Page 8, Mr. Chairman and distinguished senators. 2022 expected income. The service proposed a budget expenditure of 369.14 billion for the year 2022, which will be sourced from the following sources. First is the 7% cost of collection for the year 2022. We expect to reach 151.84 billion. 2, 60% CISS granted by Mr. President, we expect to reach 60.12 billion. And 2% share of the NCS VAT collection, there we expect to generate 14.94 billion. And then the retained income for the year 2021 to roll over to 2022 is 114.39 billion. And the share of the excess of the 2021 budget, which of course we couldn't have made any effort of spending it because it was not budgeted, as a result of the of exceeding the target, we were able to get this amount also added to our own collection. The total sum, therefore, distinguished chair, is 369.14 billion. The expected income will be utilized as follows. First, personnel cost. We expect, if everything goes well, to expend 108.85%, 85 billion, or 29.49% of the budget on personnel cost. Then overhead cost. We expect to spend 45.89 billion, or 12.43 billion of the entire budget. Capital cost. The total cost here is almost all the bulk of our money will go on capital expenditure. And here, this is one of the few budgets that is I think nationwide, that you find out that much money is put in capital instead of overhead and personnel cost. So here Mr. Chairman, by the grace of God, expect to spend 214.30 billion, which is 58.08% of the total budget of 369.04 billion. Major highlights of the proposed budget expenditure. Personnel cost for 2022. The nominal roll of 15,004 personnel and 3,200 expected recruitment of cadets are used in estimating the personnel cost of 108.85 billion, which comprises of 86.50 billion is an allocation for personnel salaries and allowances. 7.73 billion is provision for employers' contribution under the National Pension Scheme. 3.93 billion is a provision for employers' contribution to National Health Insurance Scheme. All these things we build is towards making sure that at the end of the day we'll be able to collect the revenue that is collectible for Nigeria. And we cannot do that without putting those things in place. And today, I must say, we have been able to perfect some of our system from being electronically viable to the capacity of our officers to be able to do the job in the best way possible, and also based on equipment. We came up with a multi-strategic approach to blocking revenue leakage. What used to happen is not that there was no import or export coming in and going out. It is that there are so many leakages. And the best you can do is to come up with a system to make sure that you block these leakages. And that's what we do. It's not that the volume of import or export has increased far more than it used to be. It is that we have been able to we have succeeded as a management to identify those leakages, and we are working assiduously to block them one after the other. And it is the speed at which we block this that will increase our revenue generation from time to time. And that's why we move from 876 billion in a year to today, as at the last collection, we are at 2,130 something billion. So we are working, hopefully we will meet the target of 3.019. We are pushing, but also there are factors that are also pushing back. There are some anticipations that we did. There are things that we factor into our collection that we hope that if they had taken place on time, like the carbonated drinks that was approved for us. We didn't get to start collection until about half part of the year. So we've lost the first part of the year. Which that means whatever would have been collected would have been added to our realization of the target is not there. Also, the telecommunication tariff. If some of you and Mr. President will now assent to that notification, and then we stop. So we are working now to make sure that we collect that money, but we're late. We're late. We're not sure we'll get much from it between now and December. So those factors may affect our revenue, but despite that, the men and women of Nigerian Customs are working very assiduously to make sure that we collect whatever is collected. And to witness the commissioning of our newly installed mobile scanners. Indeed, for all of us who in one way or the other are involved in the facilitation and trade across international borders, today's event will go down in history as a watershed moment. Not because the scanning of goods are new to us in Nigeria, but because for the first time, Nigerian Customs Service will be fully responsible for the management and operations of its own equipment. As part of the reform strategy of our administration, we were compelled to adopt a technology as the linchpin for trade facilitation. By recognizing its strategic importance, we have chosen to embrace it in its entirety. Our modernization project seeks to automate all our processes and procedures, of which the inspection of imports and exports is fundamental. We know that to remain competitive, our ports have to be more effective and efficient. As trade increases in volume, so must our capacity for facilitation. Efficient cargo management and the full automation of customs and other regulatory processes is guaranteed to bring down the cost of clearing, ultimately the prices of goods in the open market, an occurrence that will be beneficial to consumers across the nation. We also understand that the technology should be deployed in a manner most suitable to our needs and environment. This is why we have developed a standard operating procedure, SOP, for the use of these scanners. Our SOPs provide all stakeholders with a working guide as to their individual responsibilities, from customs officers, clearing agents, shipping companies, to terminal operators. Roles are defined to show who should be doing what, where, how, and when. It is the spelling out of these roles and how they should be performed that will ensure that we get the maximum benefit from using this non-intrusive examination equipment. As the lead agency in trade facilitation, we are constantly in the business of reinventing ourselves. Not satisfied with the achievement of the past, our focus is on making the present and the future greater. However, because we acknowledge the importance of partnering with other relevant government regulatory agencies, we have created windows that will enable connectivity to our systems. Where physical joint examinations were previously conducted by all relevant agencies, the scanning process will not only reduce the stress associated with positioning, offloading, and taking inventory of containers. It will store recorded images in a safe format, easily accessible by all agencies from the comfort of their offices. It makes the auditing of the transaction using these images easier and will definitely checkmate attempts by non-compliant traders to cheat the system.
You are watching the program Customs Report. The Federal Operation in Zone A has again impounded goods worth millions of naira for smugglers operating along the nation's borderline. The acting controller said that the unit will continue to implement policies that will help the nation to grow.
Federal Operations Unit Zone A was a period of sustained anti-smuggling onslaught, zero compromise for duty evasion and diligent facilitation of trade. We prosecuted our core mandates without fear or favor in the 6 states of the Southwest, namely Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Osun, Ekiti, and Ondo states. Even in the face of resistance, attacks, and tricks in the mode of concealment, we were duty-bound to carry out our responsibilities. I am glad to report that we shook the smuggling world within our area of responsibility. This unit also prevented loss of government revenue as our assigned position of being a layer of check uncovered attempts at evading duties. We recovered the discovered shortfalls through issuance of demand notices. We did all this at the expense of our lives, placing national interest ahead of any narrow, parochial, or personal gain. It is sad to note that some of our officers paid the supreme price last year when they got killed by smugglers. For us, they are the heroes of the anti-smuggling battle, and they will never be forgotten. Anti-smuggling. From January 1 to December 31, 2022, we made a total seizure of smuggled items worth a duty paid value of 13 billion 908 million 575,436 naira 5 kobo. Aside protecting the national economy, some of the seizures achieved protection of citizens' health because of dangerous, expired, and harmful products were prevented from being smuggled into the country. The items seized were frozen parboiled rice, vehicles, drugs, textiles, petroleum products, and other items in the import and export prohibition lists. In terms of volume, rice topped the list of our seizures. We made 93,102 bags of 50 kg, which amounts to about 156 trailer loads of rice. Even our newly constructed warehouse had an overflow of seized rice. A total number of 108 automobiles comprising trucks, tankers, cars, and motorcycles were seized, either as smuggled items or means of conveyance of smuggled items. Illicit drugs seized within the year under review are 2,354 kg and 4,976 tablets of cannabis sativa, 233 cartons by 225 milligram and 82 packs by 225 milligrams of tramadol. It is pertinent to remind us that these hard drugs fuel crime and insecurity. For petroleum products, the unit seized 656,414 liters of PMS, that is about 20 tanker loads of fuel, from economic saboteurs who seek to impoverish the majority of our country people by taking out petroleum subsidized for citizens' benefit to be sold in other countries. We arrested 176 smuggling suspects last year, secured 7 convictions, 14 were charged to court and at various stages of investigation and prosecution. 7 suspects are in detention. 2 suspects are handed over to NDLEA, 1 suspect handed over to the Nigerian Police Force, respectively, while 151 are on administrative bail. On a sad note, 4 of our officers, namely late Inspector of Customs T.P. Astor and A. Nwegweze, and Assistant Inspector of Customs Musa R. and Bristol E., lost their lives in active service while confronting smugglers last year. While we frown at such murderous acts, we also ensure that those behind some of the killings were arrested to face justice. As approved by our enabling laws, the unit patrolled within its area of responsibility and ensured that smuggled items were uncovered and seized wherever they are hidden. Our round-the-clock patrol is ever recharged, as we do not believe in leave, not even during the Yuletide. Those who doubted this and attempted smuggling during the Yuletide were shocked at our Christmas and New Year period operations. I shall be showing you some of the recent seizures as part of this press briefing. We achieved this using a combination of vigor, relying on logistics provided by the Comptroller General of Customs and the management of Nigeria Customs Service, and intelligence gathered from the field about smugglers' movement from time to time. Revenue. While our enforcement function will recover shortfalls in duty payment and achieved a total collection of 878,344,486 naira 96 kobo as revenue for the government in 2022. This collected revenue will have been lost but for the intervention of Federal Operations Unit Zone A, checking to be sure correct duties were paid into government coffers. Trade facilitation. Within the period under review, this unit provided support for facilitation of legitimate trade, ensuring ease of passage for compliant traders and double-checking suspected compliant traders. We also provided escort services for cargoes under bond to their respective destinations across the country. Projection for 2023. We want to thank the CGC and its management team for their unflinching support throughout the year and the previous years. For 2023, we shall sustain and increase the tempo of our anti-smuggling operations, ensuring zero compromise as usual, arresting perpetrator and seizing their wares. We want to advise smugglers and their collaborators to seek legitimate means of livelihood this year, as this unit will continually make life unbearable for them through interdictions, arrests, seizures, and diligent prosecution.
The PTLM Controller of Customs has been speaking on revenue generation in his command.
The revenue drive process of the Nigerian Customs Service, being championed by the CGC himself, has been very good for all area controllers, particularly those manning the revenue generating areas. The message is clear and simple. First, you know the roles and responsibility of customs for facilitation of trade. The revenue comes in. And for now, if you look at it carefully, the Nigerian Customs Service has been providing a good revenue for the country, particularly when you follow up the allocation, the monthly allocation of FAC, Federation Allocation Committee, monthly. A single organization providing almost 1/4 of what is being disbursed, there it will tell you that yes, that organization is doing well when it comes to revenue generation. I will give you a small statistics. Last month, the government, federal government, or the revenue, the FAC, distributed or allocated or distributed 700 billion, and largely Nigerian Customs Service contributed almost 140 something billion, almost a quarter of the revenue for the nation. And you know the importance of the revenue to both the state government, because the owners of the federation accounts, the federal government, the state government, and then the local government. These are the owners of the federation account. Then it from here is an indication that yes, the Nigerian Customs Service revenue generation drive is really driving the country, is cushioning the effect or absorbing the shock or the global shock of the fall in revenue generally in the world. Coming back to my terminal, that is the PTML, known as the Port Terminal Multi-Purpose Limited. If you know, PTML is a model port. Right from the beginning, that is the only one model port, right from the conceptual stage up to this. A piece of land was given to them and they developed to this area. So they are operating on a high safety and security levels. So also the customs officers too are really operating on a high security, safety, and security level. In terms of revenue, we can only compare by way of comparative analysis of the revenue generated from January to October 2021 against the 2022. Basically, as of January to October 2021, PTML generated 185,221,461,088.00 kobo. In 2022, there was an increase despite the global economic shock, despite the low volume of trade throughput, despite so many challenges, internal and external factors affecting revenue generation, but the PTML garnered 199,462,842,842.00 kobo, an increase in 7.57%. Well, for me, this is my third month. There's a good prospect of revenue in this particular command. But as I've said, external factors and internal factors can attributable to probably the not much increase in it. I expect for me as a person, I need to even double the revenue figure. But then this is how we are, and this is how it is. 7.7% increase as against 2021 is impressive. Just like I've started by telling you that on a whole, if an organization is contributing 1/4 monthly to the Federation Allocation Committee, you know, nobody needs to tell you that that organization is really working or doing well. Thank you.
Yes, we are aware that recently you represented the Siege of Customs in this international. Just before the end of this week edition of the program Customs Report, we brought you a report where goods worth millions of naira was intercepted by Nigerian Customs Service. For me, Igiseme Edinye, thanks for watching.